This story is titled, My Fiancé Said She Was Going to Bed Early. Then her friend accidentally sent me a Snapchat of her at a club with another guy. She shrugged and said it was just a game. So I took my revenge, but I am done. Hey, everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thank you so much. Now, let's start the video. So, I've been putting off writing this for a while because, honestly, it still messes me up to think about it. But I need to get this off my chest, and maybe my disaster of a relationship can help someone else avoid the same mistakes I made. Emily and I, not her real name. Obviously, we're together for 4 years. We met at my buddy James's housewarming party. I'm not usually the type to approach random girls, but Emily was different. She was loud, fun, the center of attention, basically my complete opposite. I'm more of a stay-home, watch a movie, maybe have a couple friends over kind of guy. But for some reason, we just clicked that night. From the beginning, I knew she was big into partying. Like her entire personality was built around going out, getting wasted, and doing dumb stuff with her friends. Her crew, especially Sarah, Rachel, and this dude Ethan, they were all the same. Always talking about which club had the best DJ that weekend, or posting those cringy group photos where everyone's holding drinks and making stupid faces. I tolerated her friends because I loved her, but man, they were exhausting, always drama. Always gossip, always trying to one-up each other with who had the craziest weekend, and they never grew out of it. We're all pushing 30, and they're still acting like they're 21. It was embarrassing sometimes. When things got serious between me and Emily, I made some big compromises. I started going out more, even though clubs are my personal nightmare. I'd stand there with overpriced drinks, making awkward small talk with her friends who clearly thought I was boring as hell. I rearranged my work schedule so I could stay up late with her on weekends. I even moved into a more expensive apartment closer to downtown because she said my old place was too far from everything. Meanwhile, I was paying 70% of our rent because she kept jumping between jobs. About a year and a half in, I told her straight up that while I respected her being social, the non-stop partying wasn't something I could keep up with forever. I wanted more. I wanted a home, a family, something real. She swore she was already growing out of that phase, that she wanted the same things. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. When I proposed 2 years ago, we had a serious talk about our future. I laid it all out. I wanted us to be a team, committed to each other and our goals. Emily promised, with tears in her eyes, that she was ready to move on from that lifestyle. She said her party days were fun, but she was done. She was ready for the next chapter. For a while, things were great. She went out less, started talking about wedding plans, house hunting, even mentioned baby names once or twice. Her friends gave her grief about becoming boring, but she brushed it off. I really thought we were on the same page. We set a date, put down deposits, yeah. I paid for most of it since her savings were basically non-existent, sent out, save the dates, the whole 9 yards. My parents even contributed a big chunk because they were so happy I'd found the one. My mom spent hours helping Emily pick out centerpieces and bridesmaid dresses. My dad offered to help with the honeymoon as our wedding gift. My entire family invested in this wedding. I invested everything in this relationship: time, money, my heart, my future plans, all of it built around Emily. Then, about 6 months ago, I started noticing changes. Emily began texting more, being vague about who she was with. Her friends started popping up more often. She'd say she was just getting lunch with Sarah, but would come home 6 hours later. When I'd ask about it, she'd get defensive and say I was keeping tabs on her. At first, I told myself I was overthinking it. She had promised she was done with all that, right? She told me herself she was outgrowing the party scene. We had a wedding coming up. We were building a future. Why would she suddenly throw all that away? So I ignored the way her phone started living face down on the table. I ignored how she stopped tagging locations in her Instagram posts when she used to post everything. But then she started getting all dressed up to go to the mall with Rachel. Her phone would suddenly be face down on the table when it used to be face up. She stopped tagging locations in her Instagram posts, classic signs I was too stupid to really register. I ignored it all because we had a wedding coming up, because I didn't want to be that insecure guy, because I'd already invested so much, because I loved her and wanted to believe she loved me too. I worked my ass off at a job I hated just to afford the wedding she wanted. I cut back on seeing my own friends so I could spend more time with her. I even sold my project car, the one I'd been working on for years, to help pay for the honeymoon she had her heart set on. After all that, I was just looking forward to a quiet night with her. It had been a brutal 60-hour work week, and I was drained, but spending time together felt long overdue. Lately, we'd been disconnected, me buried in work, her always off on girls' nights or whatever. I figured a night in would be good for us, a chance to just be together. I had no idea what was really going on. I got home around 7:00, and Emily was in the kitchen, looking all dramatic. She was doing this big, exaggerated yawn, talking about how exhausted she was from work even though she'd only been at her job for, 4 hours that day. I remember exactly what she said, babe, I'm completely wiped out. I think I'm just going to take a shower and crash early tonight. I was kind of disappointed since I'd been looking forward to spending time with her, but I also thought, at least she's home with me, which is pathetic looking back now. I even offered to make her some tea or something, but she said, nah, I'll probably be asleep in 10 minutes. So she goes to our bedroom. I hear the shower running and then everything gets quiet. I settled in on the couch to watch some Netflix show. I don't even remember now. About an hour goes by and I'm just zoning out when my phone buzzes. It's a Snapchat streak from Sarah. Now, this was weird as hell because Sarah barely acknowledged my existence most of the time. She was one of Emily's main party friends and definitely thought I was a buzzkill. We weren't even friends on Snapchat, as far as I knew. But whatever, I opened it. It was a video from inside Club Venom downtown, flashing lights, music so loud. The video was just distorted bass, people dancing and all that. And right in the middle of it all is Emily. My Emily. I stared at my phone, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. Emily in that dress I'd never seen before, pressed up against that guy Ethan at Club Venom, whispering in his ear, laughing like they had some inside joke. My Emily, the same one who was supposedly passed out in our bed. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was old footage. Maybe someone else just looked like her. I played the video again and again. No, that was her same bracelet, same nails she got done last week, same way she tilted her head when she laughed. I felt my stomach drop, but I had to be sure. I got up and walked toward our bedroom, my mind racing. Maybe she just went to the bathroom. Maybe she was asleep, and this was some insane misunderstanding. I pushed the door open quietly. The bed was still barely disturbed. My eyes adjusted to the dark. She wasn't in bed. My chest tightened. This wasn't just a lie. This was planned. I turned toward the bathroom. The door was cracked open. I stepped inside, my pulse pounding. The shower was dry, no steam, no damp towel. Our bathroom window was cracked open too. It faces the back of our building where there's a fire escape. She must have climbed out after her shower, probably had club clothes stashed somewhere, like some 16-year-old sneaking out after curfew. I stood there, gripping the windowsill, trying to wrap my head around the sheer stupidity of it all. This wasn't just sneaking out. It was a full-blown, premeditated operation. How many times had I kissed her goodnight, thinking she was home safe, while she was actually out pulling stunts like this? I needed confirmation. I needed to hear her lie to me. I grabbed my phone and texted, "You still up?" Barely 10 seconds later, my screen lit up with her reply. "No, babe, already half asleep." "Why?" I let out a hollow laugh. Half asleep? She was out there grinding on Ethan like she didn't have a fiancé, like she wasn't sneaking out of our home to cheat on me. The same woman who had promised me, with tears in her eyes, that she was done with that party lifestyle. The same woman who told me she was ready to grow up, to build something real, to commit to a life together. I stood there, gripping my phone, staring at that message. She was so damn sure I wouldn't check, so confident in her little act that she didn't even hesitate before lying straight to my face. That's when something in me snapped. I grabbed my keys and drove straight to Club Venom, didn't even change out of my work clothes. The whole drive there, my brain was just spinning. How many times had she done this before? How many times had I fallen asleep, thinking she was right there in our bed when she was actually out with other guys? The club had a line, but I just pushed past everyone, paid the cover charge, and went straight in. The place was packed, music blasting, lights flashing everywhere. It took me maybe 10 minutes of searching through the crowd before I spotted them at the bar. Emily was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Ethan had his arm around her waist, and they were doing shots with Sarah, Rachel, and some other people I recognized from her Instagram. They all looked so comfortable together, like this was their regular thing. I just stood there, watching for a minute. Emily was laughing, touching Ethan's chest, completely in her element. Meanwhile, I'd been tiptoeing around our apartment, thinking she was asleep. I felt like such an idiot. Then something in me snapped. I marched over, grabbed Emily by the arm, and said, "We need to talk. Now." The look on her face, I'll never forget it. First total shock, then this flash of panic, then she tried to play it cool like, "Oh, hey babe, what are you doing here?" Ethan stepped between us, all puffed up, asking who the hell I was. I told him I was her fiancé, the guy who's been paying most of our bills while she's out here acting single. He had the nerve to laugh and tell me to chill out, because they were just having fun. I almost lost it right there. Like, I've never been in a fight in my adult life, but I was ready to swing at this dude. Emily's trying to pull me away. Her friends are all suddenly recording everything on their phones, and Ethan's still standing there with this smug look on his face. I told Emily we were leaving. Ethan grabbed my shoulder, and I shoved him off. Some bouncer started heading our way, so I just pulled Emily toward the exit. Her friends were shouting all kinds of nonsense. As we left, calling me controlling, psycho, saying I was ruining the vibe or whatever. Got her in the car, and that's when the excuses started. She wasn't even sorry she got caught. She was just scrambling to find some explanation I might believe. Landed on this ridiculous story about it being a dare from her friends, said they bet her. She couldn't go back to her wild days for one night without me knowing. Can you believe that nonsense? Like I'm supposed to believe sneaking out a window and grinding up on Ethan at a club was just some innocent game. The whole ride, she's talking. All I can think about is how many nights I stayed late at work to pay for our wedding while she was probably doing this exact same thing. 4 years together, a $30,000 wedding planned, and this is the respect I get. The craziest part is that she actually seemed more pissed at Mimi for embarrassing her in front of her friends than worried about being caught cheating. Like she was mad that I made a scene by coming to get her. Apparently, I should have just texted her instead of showing up. Yeah, because she would have definitely told the truth after lying to my face all night. I asked her about the open window. Want to know what she said? "I didn't think you'd check on me. Not I'm sorry or I messed up," just basically admitting she thought I was too stupid to notice. That's when it really hit me. This was just the first time she got caught. I started thinking about all the other girls' nights and work events over the past few months, all the times she was too tired to hang out with me but mysteriously had energy for her friends, all the unexplained charges on our shared credit card for Ubers at 3:00 a.m. It was all making sense now. We were about halfway home, driving down this pretty empty stretch of road, when she said something that just broke me. I asked her, "Did you ever actually plan on keeping your promise to me about leaving the party lifestyle behind? Or was that just nonsense to get me to propose?" She sighed, like I was annoying her, and said, "People change, Daniel. I'm still young. I can't just turn into some boring housewife overnight just because you put a ring on my finger." That was it. 4 years together, all those conversations about our future, all those promises about wanting the same things, and she just casually admits it was all a lie to lock me down. I couldn't even look at her. I pulled over right there on the side of the road, not at a gas station or restaurant or anything, just on the shoulder of this 2-lane highway. I told her to get out. She thought I was joking at first. She did this fake laugh like, "Haha, very funny," but I just sat there with the car in park, engine running, waiting. When she realized I was serious, she flipped out, started screaming about how I can't just leave her here and how it was dangerous and I was being abusive. I didn't budge. I told her to call one of her party friends to come get her. She kept refusing to get out, so I grabbed my phone and ordered her an Uber. It was like $40 because we were kind of in the middle of nowhere, but I didn't care. I just needed her out of my car before I said something I'd regret. I waited until the Uber's headlights appeared down the road. She was crying for real now, saying she was sorry, begging me not to throw away our relationship over one mistake. But all I could think about was her arranging those pillows in our bed, the planning, the deliberate deception. This wasn't a mistake. This was who she was. When the Uber pulled up, she finally got out, slamming my car door so hard I thought the window might break. I didn't even watch her get into the other car. I just drove away, checked into a hotel, and turned off my phone. I spent that whole night going over every moment of our relationship in my head, all the red flags I ignored, all the times I compromised on what I wanted, because she convinced me I was being too traditional or not spontaneous enough. I realized I'd been trying to fit myself into her life instead of building a life together. The next morning, I called the wedding venue and canceled our reservation. Then the caterer, the DJ, the photographer, most of them had non-refundable deposits. So I was out thousands, but I didn't care. I just wanted it done. I didn't tell my family yet. I didn't tell her family. I didn't post anything online. I just systematically erased all traces of our planned future together. Emily kept blowing up my phone, first with tearful voicemails about how sorry she was, then angry texts about how I was punishing her and being cruel, then back to begging. I ignored all of it. When I finally went back to our apartment the next afternoon, she was there, waiting. She'd obviously been crying all night, but had also clearly spent time getting ready, hair done, makeup on, wearing the sweater she knew I liked. Classic manipulation. She acted like we were just going to talk it out and move on, started talking about healing our relationship and rebuilding trust. I just stood there, letting her ramble, before I finally said, "The wedding's canceled." You should have seen her face, total shock. Like the possibility that I might actually follow through on a consequence had never occurred to her. "What do you mean, canceled? Did you tell our parents? What about the deposits? Can we reschedule?" she asked. I showed her the cancellation emails on my phone. She completely lost it, screaming, crying, called me every name in the book, said I was overreacting to one mistake and throwing away 4 years over nothing. That's when I told her she needed to move out by the end of the month, reminded her that my name was on the lease, not hers. She'd always been too independent to sign official paperwork, which worked out pretty well for me in this case. More screaming, more tears. Then she switched tactics and tried to seduce me, started kissing my neck, saying we could work through this and be stronger than ever. When that didn't work, she went back to anger. The whole time, all I could think was, who is this person? The woman I thought I was going to marry, the one I'd built my entire future around, was a complete stranger to me. She finally left, slamming the door so hard a framed photo of us fell off the wall and shattered. Seemed appropriate somehow. I changed the locks that same day. I know that's probably not legal without giving proper notice, but I didn't trust her not to come back and trash the place while I was at work. I left her key and a note about picking up her stuff with the building manager. I thought that was the end of it, But less than 24 hours later, the real meltdown started on social media. I woke up the next morning to my phone blowing up with texts and calls from friends, family, even coworkers. At first, I was confused. I hadn't told anyone about the breakup yet except my best friend James. Then I opened Instagram and saw what was happening. Emily's friend Sarah had posted the video from the club, but it wasn't the Snapchat that showed Emily all over Ethan. No, this was video they took after I showed up. It was carefully edited to just show me grabbing Emily's arm and pulling her away, with none of the context of what happened before. The caption was something like, "Watch this controlling psycho drag his fiancée out of the club for dancing with friends. This is abuse. Share so everyone knows what kind of man Daniel really is." The comments were a dumpster fire, people. I'd never even met calling me abusive, possessive, toxic. Emily's friends were all over it, adding fuel to the fire. He's always been like this, so jealous and controlling. She's not even allowed to go out without him freaking out. This is why she's been so distant lately. She's scared of him. Complete and total lies, but people were eating it up. The post had hundreds of comments already. Then I saw Emily had made her own post, a selfie of her looking sad, with puffy eyes, no makeup, which, if you knew Emily, was practically unheard of. She didn't even go to the mailbox without mascara. The caption was this long, dramatic paragraph about how she was going through a difficult time and learning who her real friends are, and some vague nonsense about toxic relationships and finding her voice. She didn't directly accuse me of anything, which was smart. She just implied it, and let everyone else fill in the blanks. And boy, did they. The comments were full of, "We're here for you, girl, and you're so brave, and you deserve better." I was seeing red. These people were rewriting reality. The girl who cheated on me, who lied to my face, was now being painted as the victim, and I was the villain. But it got worse. Some of our mutual friends, people who had been at our engagement party, people who were supposed to be in our wedding, were liking these posts. Some even added their own comments about how they always saw the red flags and how I treated Emily. I wanted to defend myself, to tell my side. I started typing out this long, detailed explanation on my own page, but halfway through, I stopped. What was I doing? Getting dragged into social media drama like some teenager. That's exactly what Emily and her friends wanted to provoke me, to make me look crazy. So instead, I did something that probably pissed them off even more. I logged out of all my social media accounts. Just went dark. I figured the truth would come out eventually, and anyone who actually knew me would either reach out directly or at least reserve judgment. Some did. My closest friends called or texted to ask what was really going on. My brother drove over to my place that night to check on me. But others just disappeared, picking sides based on who posted the most convincing story online. I told the people who reached out the truth, the whole story, just like I've told you guys. Some believed me right away. Others were skeptical until I showed them the original Snapchat video. Now, if they believed it or not, that's not my problem anymore. I ignored everything and focused on practical stuff. Changed my passwords on all our shared accounts. Called my bank to remove Emily from my credit card. Contacted my insurance company to take her off my policy. Adult stuff that needed handling. Then, 3 days after the club incident, I came home from work to find my car completely trashed, windows smashed, tires slashed, control freak keyed into the hood. My neighbor's security camera caught the whole thing. Emily, Sarah, Rachel, and Ethan, all taking turns vandalizing my car at 2 a.m. I called the cops and filed a report, showed them the security footage. The officer was actually really cool about it, said they'd dealt with Emily and her friends before for drunk and disorderly stuff at local bars. He took the report seriously and said they'd be contacting Emily. I also filed for a restraining order the next day, included the car vandalism, screenshots of the social media posts encouraging harassment, and the threatening texts Emily had been sending me. Stuff like, "You'll regret this and you have no idea what's coming." That's when things got really interesting. Emily's parents called me. Now, I'd always gotten along pretty well with her mom and dad. They're actually pretty normal, successful people who seemed kind of mystified by their daughter's lifestyle choices. Her dad is an accountant, super straight-laced guy. Her mom teaches elementary school. They'd been really excited about our engagement and had already contributed some money toward the wedding. Turns out Emily had told them I called off the wedding because I met someone else. They were confused because it didn't sound like me, so they wanted to hear my side. I told them everything. Her dad just looked tired, like maybe this wasn't the first time Emily had pulled something like this. "We'll take care of the car repairs," her dad said immediately, "and we'll have a talk with Emily about the rest of this." I felt bad for them. They seemed genuinely blindsided by their daughter's behavior. They apologized like 10 times before hanging up, which made me feel even worse because none of this was their fault. The next day, all the social media posts attacking me mysteriously disappeared. Emily's friends went quiet. Ethan blocked me on everything. I'm pretty sure her parents laid down the law and threatened to cut her off if she didn't stop the harassment campaign. But the damage to my reputation was already done. People had seen those posts, formed their opinions. Some of our wedding guests were already taking sides in a breakup they didn't even know the real reason for yet. I finally had to send out a mass email to everyone who was invited to the wedding, just saying that the event was canceled and apologizing for any inconvenience. I kept it vague, no accusations, no drama, just, "Emily and I have decided to go our separate ways, and we appreciate your understanding during this difficult time." Emily, of course, couldn't leave it at that. She started contacting guests directly with her version of events. Some people got sucked in, others recognized the drama queen act for what it was. The whole thing turned our breakup into this public spectacle that was exhausting to deal with, all while I was trying to process the end of a relationship I thought would last forever. Eventually, things got pretty quiet for about 2 weeks. I was just going about my life work, gym, hanging with friends who didn't bail on me. I'd already mentally checked out of the relationship, which I guess surprised people who expected me to be more torn up about it. Truth is, once I saw who Emily really was, it was like a switch flipped. All those feelings just stopped, like I couldn't even remember what I saw in her anymore. My buddies kept asking if I was doing okay or processing things, but honestly, I was fine. More than fine. I felt like I dodged a bullet. Then the wedding vendors started calling me. Apparently, Emily had been contacting them, trying to get refunds on the deposits. I'd told them some story about how I'd forced her to cancel and she wanted to uncancel everything. The venue manager called me, confused, asking if we were still getting married or not. I just laughed and told him, "Definitely not. Sorry about the confusion." Had to call everyone again to confirm the cancellations and make sure they knew not to take any instructions from Emily. Then her tactics changed. I started getting texts from unknown numbers that were obviously her stuff like "I miss you" and "Can we just talk?" I'd block one number and she'd text from another. Classic Emily, when one approach doesn't work, try something else. About 3 weeks after everything went down, I ran into her mom at the grocery store. Talk about awkward. But she actually came up to me to tell me that they'd finally gotten the full story from some of Emily's friends who came clean. Apparently, Emily and Ethan had been hooking up on and off for over a year, even before we got engaged. The Dare story was complete nonsense. Her mom looked exhausted, said they'd cut Emily off financially until she got her act together. They'd been paying her car insurance, phone bill, and helping with rent for years, even though she always told me she was completely independent. They also refused to let her move back home unless she agreed to therapy. I told her they didn't raise her to be like this. She made her own choices. They seemed to appreciate that. The next day, guess who shows up at my door? Emily, looking rough, like really rough. Not the calculated sad girl look from her Instagram post, but actually disheveled. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Nope," I answered, not even moving from the doorway. She started crying immediately, said her parents had cut her off, Sarah was making her pay rent. She couldn't afford. And Ethan had turned out to be a jerk who was just using her for sex. Expected. Then came the sob story about how she'd hit rock bottom and realized what's really important, how she'd made the biggest mistake of her life and wanted a second chance. Said she'd go to couples therapy, delete her social media, cut off her toxic friends, whatever I wanted. I just stood there, waiting for her to finish. Didn't feel angry or sad or anything, really just nothing. When she finally ran out of steam, I just said, "Are you done?" She looked shocked, like she expected me to either yell at her or immediately take her back. Instead, I was just calmly standing there, completely unmoved by her whole performance. I don't hate you, Emily. I don't love you either. I just don't care about anything that has to do with you anymore. That hit her harder than if I'd screamed at her. She started saying how she knew I still loved her, that we could work through this, that people make mistakes. I cut her off. The only mistake I made was believing you were the person you pretended to be. We're done for good. Don't come back here again. Then I just closed the door while she was mid-sentence. Heard her yelling and crying outside for a while before she finally left. Honestly, the neighbors probably enjoyed the show. After that, she switched tactics again, started sending emails about all our good memories together, old photos of inside jokes. When that didn't work, she had friends reach out to check if I was okay, but really to put in a good word for her. Then she sent a handwritten letter apologizing for everything in detail. I skimmed it and tossed it. About a month after the breakup, I was at a bar with some friends when I noticed Emily across the room with her usual crew. She was clearly watching me, waiting for me to notice her. When our eyes met, she gave me this sad little wave. I just nodded and went back to my conversation. Later, she accidentally bumped into me at the bar, tried to start a conversation about how good I looked, how much she missed talking to me. I kept it brief, then excused myself and went back to my friends. She seemed frustrated that I wasn't playing along with whatever reconciliation fantasy she had going on. The next day, I found out from mutual friends that Emily had been telling people she thought we were working things out and taking it slow. Completely delusional. I had to explicitly text her, "We are not getting back together, ever. Please stop telling people otherwise." Her response was to show up at my workplace with lunch, like we were dating again. My coworkers were confused as hell. I walked her back to her car and told her firmly that if she didn't stop, I'd extend the restraining order and have her charged with harassment. That finally seemed to sink in. She started crying again, asking why I couldn't forgive her when she was trying so hard. I just said, "Because I don't want to. I've moved on. You should too." The most pathetic part came a couple weeks later. Emily's friend Rachel, who'd helped trash my car, reached out to tell me Emily had started drinking heavily, hooking up with random guys, and basically spiraling. Apparently, this was supposed to make me feel responsible for her well-being or something. I just replied, "That's unfortunate, but it's not my problem anymore. I hope she gets the help she needs." And yeah, it's been 3 months since everything went down with Emily. Life's pretty much back to normal now, maybe even better than before. I got the apartment lease transferred solely to my name, sold most of the furniture we picked out together, and bought new stuff, basically erased all traces of Emily from my daily life. The social media drama died down completely. Most people eventually heard both sides of the story and figured out what really happened. The friends who instantly believed her lies and cut me off, haven't heard from them, don't want to. The ones who stuck by me or at least asked for my side before judging, they're the only ones who matter. Emily still tries to contact me occasionally, usually when she's been drinking, based on the timing and typos. I don't respond. The restraining order expired, but I haven't renewed it since she's mostly kept her distance. Had a run-in with Ethan at a gas station last month. He practically tripped over himself trying to avoid me. Apparently, Emily put him through the ringer too after I dumped her. Can't say I feel bad for the guy. As for me, I'm good. Actually went on a few dates recently, nothing serious. Just getting back out there. Work is going well. I'm planning a trip with some buddies next month, using the money I'd saved for the honeymoon. The biggest lesson from all this? Trust your gut. Deep down, I always knew something was off with Emily and her friends. I ignored it because I wanted to believe she was the person she pretended to be. Won't make that mistake again. Also, if someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time and do not think they can be fixed. Emily showed me her true self that night at the club, not just by cheating, but by how quickly she dismissed my feelings and made excuses instead of owning her actions. Anyway, that's it. Life goes on. If you're in a similar situation, just know it gets better. The drama fades, the hurt fades, and eventually, you realize you're better off without someone who could disrespect you so completely.